It's like we've been gaslit into nullifying the God voice in us. We've been pushed into this box where we're ostracized, this culture where people are afraid of being put in the out group, of being weird, of being strange, of being different. I just got out of traffic and I passed one of those like rotating billboards, the electronic ones that change every few seconds, and I shit you not, I saw 3 ads pop up. The first one was, I think, like Prize Pick, like some gambling app with a photo of Drewski on it. The second was a White Claw ad. I can't remember what it said, but it's like a bunch of 20-somethings having a great time. And then immediately followed was some pharmaceutical drug after that. I don't remember what drug it was, but sitting there in the silence of my car with no music playing and seeing these ads rotate in my peripheral vision, I just was thinking about it. I was thinking about how thousands of people every day on this busy interstate, just their subconscious mind being flooded with all these images and every ad, and they're all basically just saying in a different way, abandon yourself, abandon yourself. There's so many ways to do it. Clean my damn glasses before my mama comment on this video. You know, I do get frustrated while observing the world around me, especially when it feels like I'm watching people be scammed out of living a life of agency and awareness. People who maybe weren't brought up in a place where it was natural to question your environment. That wasn't a norm, to question things. And this isn't me blaming people at all for being scammed and manipulated in all these different ways, especially when we know that mass manipulation, marketing, and influence is a literal science. Manufactured consent is a literal methodology that companies have poured millions into to get people to slowly think the way they want us to think and to slowly behave in the ways they want us to behave. So I would never blame people for having their psychology and sociology hacked and used against them. But nevertheless, it's still frustrating as hell. It's sad to see how consciousness and conscious expansion just has been systematically blocked and repressed. How the world we live in has been designed to keep people within a certain realm and at a certain level, within a certain paradigm. And I've felt this frustration since kindergarten, probably before. But when I entered an institution of school, kindergarten, I remember the world changing for me drastically. You know, even then it was frustrating how we're taught to abandon ourselves, our inner knowings, the intelligence that comes from within, if it isn't aligned with the established, accepted ways of being and speaking. It's adults that sever children from the real world and the real realms, labeling them as being too in their heads or too imaginative. Like, no, there's no veil for kids yet. They see the world as it really is. However, with that said, I can feel, though, that we are rapidly peeling back the layers. And I'm noticing that there are a lot of us who feel called to help expedite this process, like this process of reclaiming what's been taken, finding the courage to be our full selves. I remember in 2nd grade, a student asked my teacher how magic worked. And obviously, looking back, they were probably talking about Harry Potter or some magic they'd seen in media. However, my brain lit up at this question, because even though I'd never thought about it actively before, I suddenly had all these words trying to explain how magic worked to my teachers and classmates. It's like, finally, something I'm interested in, finally something I can speak to. And it was just this intuitive understanding of how all things, particularly elements of the natural world, whether that be a stick, a rock, water, how they all carry properties, this natural knowing that they all carry properties, that they have a field of essence, that all things have a soul, a life force, an energy to them, and you can pair different items together, and these properties can dance with each other when paired with intention. These properties can be directed to a specific end or purpose. No sparkles, no laser beams shooting out of your fingers, just basic speaking about basic laws of the earth we live on. But, this tiny little framework the masses have been ushered into to keep them from normalizing and tapping into their actual God-given power of creation, of co-creation. The moral of the story, I was just telling my classmates about the basic laws of the earth that we live on. These things just felt common sense to me. They didn't seem nonsensical. And mind you, the things I was saying to the class was no more fantastical than than what you learn if you study chemistry or physics. It's just as kind of insane. It's just that certain laws are widely accepted because they don't inherently reveal to people that they have power, that they have the power of manipulation. The magics that we talk about, the alchemy. Like, there are so many laws that we don't understand why it works. Like, there are so many laws that just are, and we just accept it. So we're willing to suspend our disbelief when it comes to widely accepted things in science. And then when this other shit, it's as valid, but you're like, ooh, no, I didn't hear that in the textbook. I didn't hear that in the approved textbook, so I can't let it into my brain. Like, it's crazy how people freak out. Kids understand this stuff better. And it's why we were so fixated on playing in the dirt, at staring at the leaf, observing the dust that comes off the rock. It wasn't just an active imagination. It's that there was no veil yet. So we were literally running through realms, living fully, before being pumped into a machine that says, okay, Michael, time to leave all that behind now. Because now it's time to start packaging you into a little unit of production that doesn't think outside of this little paradigm. Moral of the story, I remember talking like this, sharing these inner knowings, and I remember being shamed. Even though I'm in like first grade or second grade speaking from innate intelligence, I always felt like I had to armor myself because there was this intent on quieting that voice in me from the jump. And I couldn't understand why people were so jarred when I would say certain things. When I would say that we don't die, we wake up. When I say that we never start or end. I would say these things in elementary school, and people's reactions to them would be so fearful almost. And as a kid, you don't know what you're saying is going to trigger someone. So I would always feel like I'd get these unnecessarily intense reactions to things I would just say as a kid. That was a recurring theme. It felt like every structure wanted to extinguish it. But of course, I had a few teachers who saw it, and they discreetly pushed me to continue thinking the way I think and learning and exploring, to fan the flame, so to speak, and to never lose that inner voice, that inner knowing. I did have people along the way kind of quietly usher me. I had a teacher who forced me to memorize a very specific poem and phrases that I still have with me to this day. I keep them in my pocket as I navigate a world that will continue to try to gaslight me out of spirit. Anyway, I say all this to say that I have a dream that the spell over this realm is lifted by the sheer force of our collective expansion. I pray that people become privy to where they really are and experience a conscious growth spurt that allows for just deep restoration, deep rest. I see that people will learn to profoundly create and then co-create on a larger scale, instead of all our power being siphoned and directed in backward ways, instead of mindlessly contributing to our own suffering. Fearlessness, vibrance, vitality, agency, presence, these are the feelings that I want every person to sit in and embody. Shamelessness in exploring all the corners of the soul and curiosity, unapologetic self-expression, community belonging, acceptance, compassion, devoted leadership, love, rest, dance, recreation. For everyone who feels this connection and obligation to the collective, if you ever find yourself asking that question, what can I do? What can I do to contribute? Free yourself, as they've been saying forever. Self-liberation, self-love, knowing thyself, going inward and not being convinced to chase outward, not being convinced that you have to go far, because you don't. It's a matter of going deep, going within, not trying to change the world outside of you, but just trying to connect deeper with what's inside of you. You can't create peace outside your world without having peace within. You can't create what you don't have. It's like you have to have the materials to create something. It doesn't have to be physical material, but you have to at least have the frequency, know the frequency, be able to hold the frequency, to be able to transmute it and make it manifest outside of you. Yeah, I've had this feeling in my body and I wanted to draw it. So that's what this drawing is. Thank you guys for being here. Releasing blockages. That's what we're doing. That's what a lot of us are doing. Just know that we are all inextricably, did I say that right? inextricably connected. We are all connected. And just find silence inside. That's what you can do to help the collective. Just find silence inside. Create silence inside. Create spaciousness. Actually love thy neighbor. When you see people, actually have love in your heart for them. When you lock eyes with somebody, actually have love for them. Be that. Because when you love, you are loved. Anyway, subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one.